Hello, people. How are you doing? This is going to be a real informative and important stream that we're going to do tonight. We've got a very special guest here, a chap called Ian. Ian, you come from Hull, mate, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, mate, yeah.
Okay, a Hull citizen, Ian Oakey. He's organising a march for this Saturday in Hull. Could you speak to the people on one, who you are, and two, how did you come about to find this story to the point of where it's led you today?
No, thanks. Yeah, well, I'm just me. I'm just a citizen on the street, and like many people in Hull, wasn't even aware of what was going on in the back streets of Hull, around Hull, in the States. And it was Sky News who originally brought a broadcast out about the grooming in Hull. Now, they've done a three-part series at the moment. They're moving on to the fourth. And once that started being brought out towards the end of last year, October, November last year, and people started to see it, and it come to a conversation I had with my brother and a couple of mates saying, well, why isn't nobody doing it? Why didn't nobody know about this operation? That had actually been running for 2 years, since 2019. And it was only after it was closed down that any media get any involvement. It wasn't brought to anybody's attention. And we were talking, saying, well, you know, we don't know nothing about it. Who else doesn't know nothing about it? And the more we spoke to people, the more people that were saying, well, didn't even know it was going on. Wasn't even brought to our attention. That's when we came up with the idea of...
What's in there, mate, but Hull's not a big place as well, so it shows how heavily suppressed that story is.
Absolutely, yeah.
The town folk or the city folk not to really get it, what's going on.
It's not a big city, but it's the biggest in the area. It's, you know, at the end of the M62. It's just one of them forgotten cities. I was talking to one of the MPs the other night, and I said to us, you know, we had City of Culture. Everybody was on a high, but during the City of Culture, these girls were being raped, threatened to be killed, trafficked around other cities, while everybody else was on the streets, dancing, singing, loving it. Nobody knew this was going on. Yet the police knew, social services must have known. I know for a fact the schools where some of these girls attended knew, yet nobody was saying a thing. And it took till the end of the Operation Marksman for anybody to find out about it.
How long, Ian, do you think it's been a problem in the whole area? Because I know certainly in Middlesbrough it's been going on since the 80s. And it's, you know, not much came out about that until recently, but...
At this moment in time, I've only really been concentrating on this operation of Operation Marksman. Once, hopefully, that they reopen the operation, we can look deeper into things. We can start delving into records. But we just need this one out the way first.
The survivors that you're talking to, Ian, how long ago was it happening to them?
Since 2013. The first report, the longest one I know of is 2013.
Do you know for how long before they broke free from it?
She was 17.
How long was that for then? What age did she become a victim?
She was 13 the first time she was raped.
Right, right. Yeah. Are you a father, Ian?
Sorry?
Are you a father?
I am indeed, yes.
As a father?
My youngest is 13. It scares the shit out of me. It really does. I've just taken her home tonight. She's been round for tea tonight, and I'm thinking about this, you know, this evening, talking about it. Every time I go to a meeting, every time I talk to people, every time I go on to our Facebook group to post something to keep everybody, the meetings I've had with the police, the MPs, at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, right, I've got to do something here. You know, it's gone from that chat in my brother's kitchen with 3 or 4 of us to this in less than 2 months. Now, our first port of call was a letter to the police asking them. It was a long drawn-out letter asking them the questions. You know, I spoke to you earlier, Phil, about the electronic evidence. They stated that there weren't enough electronic evidence. As I said, 30 years ago, there was no mobile phones, laptops. They're doing prosecutions. There were few and far between that long ago, but nowadays they're bringing historical reports up, these people are getting prosecuted now without any electronic evidence. So why can't they do it on the say-so of these survivors and not because they haven't got it on their Snapchat? Because that's where all the messages were done, was on Snapchat.
I mean, one thing that is loud and clear, I've interviewed survivors, still in touch with survivors. It's the most upsetting thing when you stood in front of a survivor and they want justice and they've got a police force that is not acknowledging that it's going on. And in some ways, they will blame their lifestyle rather than look at the fact that this is actually going on. And the sickest thing, you mentioned it before, Hull was the city of culture.
Yeah.
Ironically, culture is involved with this. So
Absolutely.
while we've got the city of culture that is celebrating and dancing highly, there seems to be prevalence of a certain culture, a nefarious side of a culture that is getting away with this with impunity. And for all types of reasons why they don't seem to go all the way to get the full justice, as in the survivors. It's the saddest tale.
At the moment, I'll be honest, I've got my sights set on Saturday, hoping for a great turnout. I'm quite confident we are going to, you know, the one question the police are constantly asking me, I've had them on the phone tonight, how many are coming on Saturday? I don't know. Thousands, I hope. I want the people to march on Saturday and prove to, you know, this is going on in our city. Not just our city, but at this moment in time, my thoughts are with these girls from this city. Let's get people, feet on the ground, show the authorities that these girls are not on their own, and we will fight for them.
You're no stranger to demos, though, are you, Ian? I mean, you came to the Justice for Women and Children demo in Sunderland, didn't you? And kind of know the pitfalls of how the police and the council work against you when you're doing anything like that, and how they try to block you, they change your route at the last minute, they threaten to arrest you, they you know, all of these things come along with doing a protest. But it's the next step after getting a lot of interest on a Facebook page, really, isn't it? That you bring people together and you, it's a good way to advertise it to, well, not advertise it, but to let the public know what's going on in their own doorsteps. Yeah,
I mean, to backtrack on what I was saying there, what Phil asked me, we started off, we took the letter to the police on the 6th of December, handed it in, and then we had the page set up, which we had a couple of hundred people on the page at that point. We sent the letter out. By the end of December, we had 3,000 members. First week of January, that's when I said, right, we're getting these people involved. Now people are getting involved. I need this march as soon as possible. We're now sitting at 4,000 members on the Facebook page, and more are always welcome. Please look us up.
Give out your link. Tell people Facebook page.
You've actually got the flyer up on the screen and the QR codes on there, but it's United Hull on Facebook.
Right. Okay. So this shows how this story, mate. It's not the popular side of it. This is just sheer justice. This kind of annoys me, mate, and I know it'll annoy you, and I can't help but get passionate to the point I get kind of flustered, because we're talking about abuse, we're talking about survivors, and people can see it, people can witness it, and when you've heard the story of what has happened with some survivors, to understand that the police, as you were explaining before, they would prefer, or they work off a point system in order to appease the CPS.
What it basically is, they have to have a threshold of evidence. It's a point system. That's the way I look at it. It's a point system. Now, for the CPS to actually prosecute, you have to get to a certain level. And if it's below that, the chances of them taking the case to court are none, because they feel they'll lose the case. Now, I've seen the evidence that these survivors have got, They've shown me their documentation, and it's massive. It is massive, and these are just what they've recorded. Obviously, the police have got exactly the same. I've had the girls telling me about being found in hotel rooms because of what I can't explain why, but they were found in hotel rooms with men, and they were just taken out and dropped off at a bus station to go home. One of the girls was kicked out of the police station, went into the police station on a Saturday night after being abused, and the police said, "You'll have to come back tomorrow. It's too much of a serious case for me to handle tonight." These are the sort of stories I'm getting from these survivors, and they're horror stories.
It's going to make it worse. It's going to make a survivor go, "I can't go through that. I've already gone through what I've gone through, and the establishment that you pay taxes for are not even prepared to acknowledge it."
Well, these girls are the bravest people I know, and I must say that because I know they're actually watching tonight, and I know they've told me these stories. Now, one of the questions that was in back of my mind, like I said before, they're all building a new life. It'll never go out of the mind. It'll always be there. Their past will always haunt them. However, they're building their own families now. They're all settling down. Now, our question to them was, if this gets opened up again, which we hope it does, all this is going to flood back. And their answer was, we just want justice.
Well, okay, let's start with this then, mate. This is a statement that was put out by the police, yes? And
yeah.
It was in response to what we can see was possibly this Sky reporting on what was going on in Hull. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct, yeah.
Right. So as we read down, we'll try and kind of counter it and see if it makes sense what they're actually saying here, and if it stands up with what you know and with what you've learned by talking with survivors as well. Detective Chief Superintendent Philip Ward said, in a light of recent broadcast investigation into Operation Marksman, we wanted to clarify some points which have been omitted from the reporting. First and foremost, the welfare of those affected by this investigation. The victims must always be put first. Let's stop there. Is that accurate to say that at this point in time, Ian?
Well, the first thing I'll point out is on the Sky report, there was three girls, three of the three victims actually did the first report. There was a fourth that was also part of the same group, shall we say, that the police didn't even know about. Now, if you look at on the report on the Sky News, if you watch that on part 2, I believe it is, you watch on there, they're talking to the chief superintendent, interviewing her. It was a lady, was this, and they said, well, what about this victim, as they called it? And you could see by her expressions, oh, well, yeah, well, and you could tell they didn't even know this person existed, let alone anything else.
Yeah.
So if they cared that much, why wasn't that person also involved? Because the other survivors named this other girl.
Because what I'm getting at, Ian, is that they're implying here that everyone who's alleging that they've been groomed, that they've gotten foreknowledge of them, and they're all being taken care of.
I read that they're covering their backs, saying that because of the welfare of the victims, they're not going to disclose certain things because you don't want the truth getting out there. And because of the welfare of the victims, they're withholding information, and they'll try to say that they don't want to put them through any more trauma by pushing this forward or whatever. It's bollocks.
I'd like to stress that throughout this entire investigation, we at Unbeside Police, along with our partners at Hull and East Riding local authorities, the education services and local health providers, have provided support to the victims when needed and have left no stone unturned when investigating every disclosure made to us. Let's stop there, mate. Anything you want to say at that point?
Well, the first thing that sticks straight in my mind where it says the education services and local health providers. Now, one of the survivors was she had a care worker, shall we say, whatever it was at the school, who identified, and she confided in this care worker, this support worker or whatever she was, and it was documented on her files that she knew that she was being groomed. She knew that she was being raped. And this evidence went to the police. And that's from the school. Mm. The part where it says Hull and East Riding local authorities, who is that? Who is that? They haven't identified who that is. It's such a broad spectrum, is that? Which local authorities?
There you go.
Yeah. The local authorities includes the schools. They're under the local authority.
Exactly.
Social services are under the local authority. So why have they not, there's two sections of local authority that have done jack shit for these girls, really. And even when they've given the information, why have they not? I wouldn't go to sleep at night if I hadn't been down that police station and said, what are you doing with the information I gave you about this child? There's a child being raped here and you're doing nothing about it. What's that all about? If that child had gone in and said, my dad raped me last night, she'd have been whipped out of that house and put in care quicker than she could blink, and they would have taken every word as gospel.
We'll go back. We said before, we're both fathers.
Yeah.
Any police officers, if their daughters come with an allegation like this and they amassed up to 10,000 text messages, you try to tell me you couldn't find something that's gone on with all that, text messaging. You can't. There's nothing that stands up that warrants what these girls are talking about.
I mean, one of the things, maybe a little bit off topic, but there was X amount of telephones seized during the investigation, but there was nothing found on them that was incriminating. Anybody who knows anything about electronics, whatever you delete off your phone, your laptop, your computer can still be found if it's wanted to be found.
Of course it can. They think we're all stupid, don't they?
Well, this is it. We're told, if it's other cases, they've gone into the phones and they've looked back and they've sent text messages 5 or 6 years ago, things like that. You see it every day in the news about something like that. Yet, in this instance, they couldn't find any incriminating evidence on the phones. Now, I know that, well, I'm saying I know. Apparently, Snapchat is one that deletes on a regular basis, or once it's been seen, it goes or something. I'm not quite sure. It's still recorded somewhere. Somewhere in that stratosphere is that message.
Of course.
I think when we live in a society where a victim a victim's evidence is not considered valid in court, if at some point in the future they decide to prosecute these people that abuse them as children, if they've got into any sort of criminal activities, been arrested, got into drugs, anything like that, these coping mechanisms that these kids usually fall into when you've been abused like that. If they've got into any of those behaviours, their evidence isn't valid. And what sort of society thinks that that's okay to not consider what these people have been through and how they've coped with it to get to a point where they can actually talk about it, and then they're discredited because they've been on whatever? Can I just make a point about the CPS as well? Because I know what you're saying. Oh, it didn't score high enough to take action because they would have lost the case, whatever. But the situation that propelled me into all of this, opening my eyes about the grooming stuff, was me reporting something that happened to me in a grooming line when I was a child, a very young child, and me reporting it to police was a cathartic sort of thing to do. It wasn't because I thought it would go to court or wanted to prosecute anybody. I just wanted to get it out. And not in a million years did I expect them to come back and say the CPS is taking it to court. Even the police were scratching their heads, right? So I said to her, why are they doing that? My mum's dead, his mum's dead. It's his word against mine. I know how it works when it's cases like this. Why would they even take this to court? They're putting me through hell leading up to that court case, bringing my trauma back for a year, waiting for it to happen. And for what? Because you've got no chance of, I don't understand why the CPS think this is a kid. Oh, well, they've just had a pot of money for historical abuse cases, so they're going to use that to take it to court. Wait a minute, you're going to take a case you're not going to win to court out of that pot of money? What, so you can all fucking take some out of it? It's an absolute joke, because they don't want to pay out compensation. They don't want to take these real cases to court, something that's actually needs dealing with today, not something that's just somebody's already over. I would just like to say that I have my own reasons for reporting it, but for them to take it to court was like, what the hell? And that's how come I ended up at the Justice for Chelsea, because they didn't take her case to court. She'd been raped by 3 guys. She had all the evidence on her body when she went to the police, and they still didn't take it to court. What more do you need to do? But you're going to take a case 40-year-old to court with no witnesses, and it's ridiculous. This is where people are scratching their heads, and it infuriates me. It really does, as you can tell.
If they're not seen to be having any form of fear factor because they seem to be getting away with this, whether it's political correctness or whatever it is, we don't have to go there, but we have to put that on the table. Whatever the reason that's stifling them really looking at this, it's sending a bad message to the people that are doing it, because they feel it can be done and it's done in the cloak of dark or whatever. There doesn't seem to be sufficient public justice in order to scare and change the problem within the society, the section of society that chooses to do this.
When you actually see, like I was saying right from the beginning, this all started from nothing, and it's escalated to this, and I'm just in my mind working things out, and I still now disbelieve how nobody was ever told about this happening in our city, the city of culture in 17, and all this, and all these atrocities were going on, because that's what they are. While everybody else was out partying, the police, the CPS, the social services, the schools, all knew this was happening, but kept it quiet. And it just baffles me. And listening to you two talk and reading some of the comments, it just goes to show that it's something that keeps getting pushed under the carpet because it's not what we should know about, you know.
Well, I got sacked for talking about it, Ian, you know that.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, yeah.
Was there any inaccuracies do you know of in that program, mate?
Nothing that has come to light. Like I say, I've spoke to the survivors, and they have nothing but praise for the broadcaster. Yeah,
I'm so glad that they feel that it was portrayed in the right way.
Yeah, no, they're more than happy, and like I was saying earlier, they're doing part 4, and we're actually going to be in part 4. And the girls, you know, they've said, look, we're doing a part 4. Yes, they want to be involved. Yes, because you're doing so much for us. You know, they've all said what a great job they've done for them. So how the police can say that they're doing it wrong, yet the survivors themselves are saying, well, hang on a minute, no, they aren't. They're doing it right. They're actually doing what you should have done.
Well, what was the truth then? If you want to tell me that's wrong, what was the right information?
How dare you ask for the police force to be transparent? My God, all you ever hear is no evidence, no evidence, no evidence. They're not going to turn around and go, we've got a shitload of evidence, Sharon, but you know how it goes. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's astounding, isn't it? I mean, this is what I like about this chat and looking and breaking this down. We're actually exposing the inadequacies. You know what I mean? This will give people strength to keep going and keep pushing. If you're pushing in the right way, it'll gain traction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Careful as well. You know, we've got to tackle this subject in the right way. Primarily, survivors have to be paramount here. Sorry, mate. Do you want to say anything, Ian, before I get stuck?
No, crack on. No, crack on to the next bit.
Operation Marksman has been an intensive 2-year investigation into reported child sexual exploitation in a number of local authority areas. As part of an investigation, we spoke at length with all victims identified to us. We can confirm that 2 of the 3 individuals that have recently been interviewed by national media were involved with the Operation Marksman investigation. So are they saying that these 2 of the 3 people are liars then? Because they were saying in the last paragraph that there was inaccuracies. So was this inaccuracies come from these 2 or 3, or?
Well,
What?
they say 2 of the 3 because there was actually 3 and there was 4, so that's all completely wrong. There was 3 in the program, and the 4th wasn't involved in it because the police hadn't investigated her at all. And that the main reason for that was that she wasn't actually from Hull, but she was trafficked to Hull.
Who's inaccurate here then?
It's a load of bollocks. Again, in the last week, I've had a girl from Grimsby across the water from us who's contacted us and says she's a survivor from over there. Nothing to do with Marksman. She's never gone to the police. She's never, like I was saying earlier, this is what I want, is people coming forward. Now, she's very vague at the moment because obviously she doesn't know who I am. She doesn't anything. So she just wanted to say, I just wanted to introduce myself as, and now I am also a survivor of child grooming gangs in Grimsby. So obviously, kid gloves, I've just said, you know, I'm really sorry to it, blah, blah, blah. If you want to be, you know, if you want to chat, you want to give any information, do you want to join us on the march? She's hoping to come across with her mother and father on Saturday. And I've said, you know, make yourself known to me if you wish, you know, but this just goes to local authorities. It's a different authority, but it's in the same area. So, you know, where is it going? Is it just to Hull? But it's not Hull and East Riding. So in East Riding, you've got your bigger towns, you've got your seaside towns of Bridlin, Hornsea, Witherinsea, you've got Driffield, you've got these little towns where are nondescript towns, but is it going on in their areas as well? Because the way they're talking there, as if they've done it within the local area. So how far have they spread their net or their investigation? How much do they know that we don't? If they've had to spread it in the area, they must know something's going on elsewhere as well. Just my thought.
No, I think you're right. If someone has come to you and reported that they have been transported from A to B to be exploited, you could actually find that information out if you knew the vehicle via the surveillance system that we've got quite easy. So with the surveillance grid that we've got, why are people, or why are the police not doing their due diligence and actually analysing footage which can corroborate what these young girls are saying? Like you said, mate, if a car is owned by a certain person, that's easy to find out with the vehicle recognition plates and whatever else.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then through 6 degrees
they
of
can
separation,
tap into anybody's phone as well.
This is it. There's so many different ways. Is it a resource? Is it a resource thing, mate? Is that? Am I defending the police too much there?
I mean, you look back on the history of Unbeside Police. They had a damning report 2 years ago, which is quite coincidental at the same time as this operation began. Again, they're saying they haven't got the officers. You know, they're always saying that they're struggling, and it's just excuses in my eyes.
Sticks in my mind about that program that they brought out about it was the lads said if they robbed somewhere, they would get time in prison, so they can make more money out of selling girls than they can if they were robbing cars or selling drugs, because they'd get sentenced for that, where they can get away with selling kids. That's what sticks it. That was from their mouths. That was the reason they did it. It was a good way to make money without any consequences.
See, what was the saying to you before about the bad message? The message you're giving to the survivor as well as to the actual perpetrator. So if they can think that now, how much? Well, let's look at it this way. For anyone to actually want to do this and do this with impunity, what do you think they think of the girls?
Well, they don't think of them at all, do they? As a profit.
How much they can make.
Yeah. What's that one worth to me? That's all it is. It's nothing. It's the same old story. They've got away with this. So we've got to assume that it's still going on because they've got away with it. So they're going to carry on. So where is the next survivors of the failed Operation Marksman?
Yeah.
Because these girls.
And you know what's worrying? the poverty that the government is putting everybody in, right? There's a lot of hungry kids out there, and there's a lot of takeaways that are willing to give you a few free pizzas to get your trust and get your friendship, and then takes it further and takes it further. You can sit in my Mercedes, or do you want to just take them drugs down there for me? Or do you want to, have you got a sister? Do you know what, Phil? The reason I kept going on about it, the reason I spoke out about it at my workplace, and I put it on Facebook, and I knew it was going to cause me problems, right? The reason I carried on is because I believe the same. If we don't, I've got daughters, if we don't warn these kids of the dangers and how it works and how insidious it is at the beginning, how are they going to know to avoid those pitfalls? They aren't, because nobody's educated, because you're not allowed to talk about it. But I wanted to talk about it because I think my business, I was in the business of child protection as I saw it. So how do you protect a child? You educate a child on how to stay safe. And if you're in child safety, isn't that what you're supposed to do? You're not supposed to go, let's sack the people willing to talk about it because we don't want to let them know what's really going on. Let's just create more victims, shall we?
On that subject, going back to the beginning of everything to do with United Hull, we did, when we dropped the leaflets, the letters off at the police, there was 10 guys, all part of the admin team, who had got together. We went to the city centre to hand out some leaflets that we had, the original leaflets, which was, it was an informative one. And it came with quotes from the survivors themselves that was stated on the Sky News programme. Things like, one of the girls had said, I was raped by 150 men, and all these various things. And we put a flyer together, and we went into the city centre to hand them out. As we were handing them out, the ones that we noticed wasn't taking these leaflets was the young. Hull's a massive student city. You go to them with a leaflet, oh, no, but it's about grooming gangs, operation, no, and they weren't interested. It was as if I was, I don't know what, but they just weren't interested. And that's the young, and that's worrying. These, I wouldn't say we were saying, oh, there's two young girls there walking, give them a leaflet, they need to know about this. It was giving it to everybody, but we're trying to explain, but they just weren't interested. It's as if it was a taboo subject and they didn't want to be involved because it is not affecting their lives. So they wanted to be closed off. Do you see what I'm saying? And that was the worrying thing. That was really a worrying thing.
Put it through a class mangle as well, mate. Imagine there'll be a lot of people living in affluence now. When you talk about the towns and cities that are most affected, you mainly talk about working class areas, socially segregated areas. Yeah. How do you get that story across when you've got a nice affluent person living in a middle class area that would rather call you a racist than take on the story on board? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, we've already, I know that we've got that label already, if I'm right. Yeah. Sorry. We knew we'd get it, but, people actually stood back and looked and read our Facebook page, read the messages from everybody on that page, and it's all the same thing. We are not far right. It doesn't matter what colour, creed, religion, nationality, it's not important to us. It's, this is for the survivors. Simple as that. And to stop this happening. Yeah. But people are so blinkered. Our kids deserve to be protected from every danger that's out there. And if there's adults putting children at risk, that needs dealing with from any quarter. Yeah. It's not just about child rape. It's about getting them involved in criminal activity or anything. Why shouldn't you be allowed to talk about child protection? Because that's what's lacking. It seems that, the system's set up. It's rotten at the core. And you can defend some of the people that work within those systems to try to do the right thing, and you're just getting through the day and doing the best you can for the kids they're directly involved with. But they're working in a system that's never going to let them really stand up for those kids when it's needed, because there's a big profit margin to consider. Yeah, it's like I say, it's a taboo subject.
You know, people don't want to get involved because it's not affecting their lives, and that's the problem. You know,
that is the problem. People want entertaining, and in many ways, people think their life's hard enough anyway. They just want to escape once they shut that door and grab the cat and watch Ant and Dec or whatever else it is, you know, just totally escape. Now, I get that on so many different levels. Don't we all want to do that? But if we all do that now, we're going to have a multi-generational problem that's going to keep arising, because you're going to get a constant trail of survivors, because the systemic...
Do you know what though? We don't need. Sorry, keep putting
right.
in. Sorry.
You know what? I tell you what. Someone actually said, "Put her on the naughty step." If I had a step here, I would put you on a timeout for a minute. I'm telling you, because
can I just say, I just don't want everybody living in fear. We don't want everybody in the forefront of their mind thinking that everybody's a child groomer that is of a certain ethnic whatever. But without the education, not everybody wants to know. Like you say, we live in a little bubble, and that's all right as well. It's our freedom to choose that. However, without that education, without that layer of education, and it's not even, well, parents of young children need to be able to say, on a general term, if anybody does X, Y, and Z, because that's potentially what's out there, the child learns that they can talk about those things. You know, if anybody, but we don't coach our children like that, essentially, and schools don't coach children like that, because I mean, you don't want them living in fear. You just want them to know what to do if something happens. Prepare for the worst kind of thing. Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. We don't want everybody looking at everybody suspiciously. We just want the protection of these people, and they're, you know, when they're expressing or exposing or disclosing anything, that somebody takes them seriously and it goes down the channels that it needs to go down. So, like I say, it's not about everybody living in fear of it. We don't want to bring it into our reality. We want to get it out of our reality. And the way to do that is for children to, at the very first stages of this grooming process, be educated enough to educate their children. If anybody says this or does this, you need to tell me. Just tell me. I need to know these things.
It's well known, the fact. I mean, just what we discussed, that, you know, free pizzas, sit in the flash car, all this is showing attention. Now, two of the girls come from completely different backgrounds in Hull. One's from a well-to-do middle-class family. One was in care. Both seeking attention. So it's not. I'm maybe wrong in saying, but I don't actually think it's a class thing. It's some children are lost, irrelevant of what background they come in. They're just not quite sure where they're going. The pressures of everyday living these days. They're looking for some solace, some attention from somebody, and they just happen to be. I don't know if they give an aura out, but these predators seem to know that somebody needs attention. They start focusing on that person for whatever reason. It could be anything, you know. One of the girls could have been stood at a bus stop. Oh, he could have gone up. Oh, the last bus has gone. Don't worry, I'll give you a lift home. Oh, that's very nice of you. Not a problem. Them sort of things, and that's all it is. They must know that they're looking for attention.